The first lie sounded small. That was what made it dangerous. Richard did not scream it. He did not dress it up with some long explanation. He just sent it in a text while I was parked outside our son's school, with my attorney's folder still sitting on the passenger seat. I can't give you what I don't have, Maggie. Stop bleeding me dry. I remember staring at those words until they stopped looking like a message and started looking like a performance. Stop bleeding me dry. That was what he called child support, not groceries for Noah. Not baseball fees. Not school lunches. Not the dental bill I had been stretching over 2 payments. Just me, somehow, taking too much from him. I sat there for a moment, watching parents pull in and out of the school lot, everybody carrying on like the world had not just tilted a little. Then my phone refreshed. Facebook opened, and there she was. Vanessa Lane, smiling beside a brand new white SUV, with a red bow stretched across the hood like it was Christmas morning. She had one hand on the driver's door and the other holding a set of keys up toward the camera. The caption said, "He said I deserved something safe. Grateful for a man who always takes care of me." I read it once. Then again. Then I zoomed in. There was a temporary plate, a dealership tag, a reflection in the driver's side door. Richard's reflection. Not clear enough for a stranger to notice, maybe, but I had known that man for 22 years. I knew the shape of his shoulders. I knew the way he stood, with one hand in his pocket, like the whole world was a meeting he was waiting to control. Then I saw the date. That was the part that made my hands go cold. The car had been posted on the same day Richard filed to lower child support for his son. If you know what it feels like to find betrayal hiding behind money, behind custody papers, behind one clean little lie, subscribe. Stories like this are not just about cheating. They are about evidence, patience, and the moment someone finally takes their power back. I did not cry. I did not comment. I did not call Vanessa. I took one screenshot. Then I sat there in that school parking lot and said nothing. My name is Maggie Collins, and I was 51 years old when Richard decided the truth had become too expensive to tell. I was not a perfect wife. I want that said early, because women like me are always expected to be perfect before we are allowed to be hurt. I had tired mornings. I had sharp words. I had days when I stood in the laundry room with a basket of clothes at my feet and wondered how one person was supposed to hold together a job, a house, a teenage boy, a divorce, and her own sanity without dropping something important. But I was steady. That was the word people used for me. Steady, Maggie. Before Noah was born, I worked full-time in an insurance office. It was not glamorous, but I was good at it. I knew forms. I knew deadlines. I knew how one missing signature, one wrong date, one small unchecked box could change an entire claim. That mattered later. I just did not know it yet. When Noah came along, Richard's work travel started picking up. There were conferences, client dinners, sales retreats, late flights, early flights, and the kind of vague business trips that always sounded too important to question. So I cut my hours, not because I had no ambition, not because I loved being the default parent every minute of the day, but because somebody had to remember the inhaler, the dentist, the permission slips, the cleats, the school emails, and the science project that was somehow always due on a Thursday morning. For a long time, I did not resent that. Richard used to make it feel like we were a team. He fixed the kitchen faucet when it leaked. He called if he was running late. He brought coffee on Saturday mornings and put it beside me without making a big show of it. Sometimes, after a hard week, he would take me to that little Italian place on Maple Street and order the wine I liked before I even opened the menu. That is the part people do not always understand about betrayal. It does not always begin in an ugly marriage. Sometimes it begins in a marriage that had good years. Real years. Birthdays. Hospital waiting rooms. Inside jokes. Old photographs. A child asleep between you during a thunderstorm. Promises made by people who sounded sincere when they made them. Then 22 years passed, and nothing shattered all at once. It cracked, quietly, through little sentences. You worry too much. You make everything about the kids. Money does not grow on trees. Maggie. At first, I believed he was under pressure. I told myself that divorce scared him, that the bills embarrassed him, that maybe seeing numbers on paper made his failures feel too official. So I adjusted. That is what I had always done. I bought cheaper groceries. I canceled my supplemental insurance. I kept driving my old car, even after the check engine light started blinking, like it was trying to warn me personally. I patched Noah's backpack twice before buying a new one. I went 2 winters without replacing my coat because Richard kept saying we had to be realistic. Meanwhile, Richard became realistic in expensive shirts, new cufflinks, new cologne, fresh haircuts, client dinners that ran until midnight, receipts that disappeared from the kitchen counter before I could read them. He had a way of making his wants sound practical and my needs sound irresponsible. If he needed something, it was business. If Noah needed something, it was pressure. If I asked a question, it was attitude. When we separated, Richard did not say he wanted to become a better father. He did not ask how we could make Noah feel safe. He said he wanted fairness. Fairness. That was the word he hid behind. Then he filed to lower child support and claimed I was using Noah as a paycheck. That sentence hurt more than the divorce papers. Because it took every school morning, every fever, every late night homework argument, every grocery run, every doctor bill, every pair of shoes I bought because Noah's feet would not stop growing, and turned all of it into greed. Richard had a gift by the end. He could take responsibility and make it sound like theft. At first, I thought he was just angry about the divorce. Then I started noticing the pattern. The money was always gone. But somehow, Richard's life kept getting more expensive. He said he was broke with the confidence of a man who expected everyone else to feel guilty for noticing his new watch. He said rent was crushing him. He said his company had cut bonuses. He said child support was leaving him with nothing. But his shirt still came back from the cleaners, pressed and wrapped in plastic. His car was newer than mine. His dinners still happened in restaurants where the appetizers cost more than Noah's baseball glove. Then the passwords changed. The old account we had used for years suddenly needed a code sent to Richard's phone. The credit card app logged me out. A statement disappeared from the shared email folder. When I asked about it, he sighed like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. You're reading into things again. That became his favorite sentence. If I asked about a strange charge, I was reading into things. If I asked why he canceled another weekend with Noah, I was creating tension. If I asked why he wanted to text outside the parenting app, I was making the divorce harder than it needed to be. Richard wanted phone calls, side texts, quick conversations in the driveway. Anything with no record. Anything that could later become my word against his. At the same time, he started talking about 50-50 custody, like it was a medal he deserved for saying the phrase out loud. He told his lawyer Noah needed both parents equally. He told mutual friends I was keeping his son from him. He told his sister I'd become bitter, and she repeated it to me in that soft, careful voice people use when they want cruelty to sound like concern. But the calendar told a different story. Richard canceled Friday pickups. He missed Noah's dental appointment after confirming twice. He skipped the parent-teacher conference, then said nobody told him. He forgot baseball practice, then blamed me for not reminding him with enough warmth in my tone. That was Richard's specialty. He did not just fail you. He made you responsible for how badly he failed. When I brought up support, his voice went cold. You don't care if I end up homeless, do you? That was how he did it. He never answered the question in front of him. He dragged me into a different one. A darker one. One where I was cruel, unstable, greedy, impossible to satisfy. So I stopped arguing. I bought a plain notebook from the pharmacy and started writing things down. Dates, times, missed pickups, late arrivals, medical appointments, school emails, messages, excuses. I did not do it because I wanted revenge. I did it because I knew what happened to women who walked into court with only feelings. We got called emotional, bitter, difficult. We got asked why we did not keep better records. So I kept better records. Noah noticed more than I wanted him to. He was 15, old enough to understand tension, but still young enough to hope the adults in his life would fix what they broke. He stopped packing early for his father's weekends. He stopped asking if Richard was coming until the car was actually in the driveway. He stopped getting excited out loud. That was when something changed in me. The divorce was painful. The money lies were insulting. The affair rumors were humiliating. But watching my son make himself smaller so his father would not feel guilty was the part I could not forgive. Richard thought the fight was about what he owed me. He was wrong. It was about what he owed his child. And soon, Vanessa's proud little post would show exactly where Richard's money had really been going. The post was still there the next morning. That surprised me. I do not know why. Maybe part of me expected guilt to travel through the screen and tap Vanessa on the shoulder. Maybe I thought she would wake up, look at what she had written, and realize she had just bragged about being taken care of by a man who was trying to pay less for his own son. But she did not delete it. She added more. Another photo. A close-up of the steering wheel. A picture of the red bow lying across the hood. Then a comment from one of her friends. "Who spoiled you like this?" Vanessa replied, "A man who knows I deserve to feel safe." Safe. I sat at the kitchen table with cold coffee in front of me and felt something inside my chest go very still. Richard had used that word with me once, years ago, when Noah was a baby and I was afraid we would not make the mortgage. I remember standing in the hallway with a stack of bills in my hand, trying not to cry because the baby had finally fallen asleep. Richard had taken my hand and said, "I'll keep us safe." Now he was using safety as a gift for another woman, while asking a court to reduce support for his son. I wanted to call him. I wanted to hear him lie in real time. I wanted to ask if the leather seats were paid for with the money he claimed he did not have. But I had learned something by then. A liar loves an emotional reaction. It gives him smoke. It gives him noise. It gives him a way to point at your pain and call it the problem. So I did not give Richard smoke. I gave myself records. I took screenshots of the full post, then the caption, then the comments, then Vanessa's profile name, Then the dealership tag. I zoomed in on the temporary plate and saved that too. I wrote down the date and time. I saved the link. I sent everything to Patricia. Then I closed my laptop and made Noah breakfast. That was the strange part. The world did not stop because my husband had humiliated me through another woman's smile. The toast still needed butter. The dog still needed to go out. Noah still needed a ride to school. At 8:43 that morning, Richard texted again. Maggie, I need you to be reasonable. I cannot keep paying like this. I looked at his message. Then I looked at Vanessa, leaning against that white SUV, like she had won something. For one moment, my thumb hovered over the keyboard. There were so many things I could have said. I could have said I knew. I could have said Vanessa should thank Noah too, since his support money seemed to be helping. I could have said the word mistress and listened to Richard panic through the screen. Instead, I typed one sentence. Send everything through the attorneys. He did not answer for 9 minutes. Then he wrote, Wow, so this is how you want to play it? I did not reply. Because I was not playing anymore. I thought the car was the betrayal. I was wrong. The car was only the ribbon on top of everything Richard had been hiding. By the time I walked into Patricia Grant's office with that screenshot, I had stared at it so many times I could see it even when my eyes were closed. Vanessa Lane beside the white SUV. The red bow across the hood. The caption about a man who always took care of her. The temporary plate. The dealership tag. Richard's reflection in the door. And that date. That was the piece my mind kept circling back to. Not her smile. Not the car. Not even the caption, as cruel as it was. The date. The same day, Richard's attorney filed papers saying he could no longer afford the child support order for Noah. I had imagined Patricia would react the way I wanted someone to react. Maybe with anger. Maybe with disgust. Maybe with that sharp little sentence people use when they think the truth has finally become obvious. We got him. But Patricia did not say that. She did not gasp. She did not slap the desk. She did not tell me to celebrate. She put on her glasses, pulled the screenshot closer, and studied it the way a doctor studies an X-ray. Quietly, carefully, without giving the disease more drama than it deserved. Then she asked me if I had saved the original post. I said yes. She asked if I had the timestamp. Yes. The caption. Yes. The comments. Yes. The profile name, the dealership tag, the link, and the image, before Vanessa had a chance to delete or edit anything. Yes. For the first time in months, I felt like I had done something right. Not because I had found the truth. That part still hurt too much. But because I had not ruined it by screaming. I had not turned evidence into a fight. I had not given Richard a warning. Patricia leaned back in her chair and looked at me over the top of her glasses. According to her, in our state, that photo by itself would not decide anything. A mistress standing beside a new SUV was not enough. A caption was not enough. Even Richard's reflection in the paint was not enough. It was ugly. It was insulting. It was humiliating. But court did not run on humiliation. Court needed a trail. Patricia said if the money connected that vehicle to marital funds, hidden income, false disclosures, or spending Richard had failed to report, then it could matter. That was when the story changed shape. It stopped being about Vanessa's post. It became about discovery. And discovery, I learned, has a way of making liars nervous. Patricia's office started asking for records. Bank statements, credit card statements, dealership documents, loan applications, insurance policies, tax returns, business reimbursement records, transfer histories, payroll files, bonus records, retirement account activity, custody messages, school pickup records, medical appointment logs, parenting app exchanges. All the dull, ordinary paperwork Richard thought no one would care about. All the little places where a lie has to sit down and leave a mark. Richard did not take it well. 2 days after the first request went out, he called me from a number I did not recognize. I let it go to voicemail because I had finally learned that not every ringing phone deserves an answer. His voice was tight. He said I was harassing him. He said I was dragging Vanessa into private matters. He said I was trying to ruin his life. That was rich. Coming from a man who had turned his own son's support hearing into a poverty performance. I forwarded the voicemail to Patricia and did not answer him. That became my rule. No emotional replies. No driveway arguments. No late-night explanations. No trying to make Richard understand what he already understood perfectly well. Everything went through the attorneys. Richard hated that. He had always been good at winning conversations. That was his little gift. He could twist a sentence until I was defending a tone instead of asking about a charge. He could change the subject so smoothly that I would forget the question I came in with. He could make me apologize just to bring peace back into the room. But records did not get tired. Records did not cry. Records did not raise their voice and give him something to point at. Records just sat there, waiting. The first real break came from the dealership paperwork. The SUV was not in Richard's name. It was in Vanessa's. Of course it was. That was what he had counted on. He thought distance on paper meant safety. But 3 days before Vanessa drove that car off the lot, Richard had transferred a large payment to her. He labeled it personal loan. A personal loan. I remember Patricia reading those words out loud, and I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. It was not funny. It was the kind of phrase people use when they want something dirty to sound clean enough for a bank statement. Patricia followed the dates. The amount Richard sent Vanessa matched the down payment on the dealership record almost exactly. Not exact enough for him to call it a receipt, close enough for a judge to look twice. Then came the insurance record. The SUV policy was under Vanessa's name, but the first payment had been made with Richard's business credit card. The same card he had listed in his financial disclosures as necessary for work expenses. Work expenses. Apparently, keeping Vanessa in a white SUV with heated seats was now part of Richard's professional life. Then another transfer appeared. This one was smaller, but not small. Richard had labeled it consulting advance. Patricia asked for proof that Vanessa had done consulting work for his company. There was nothing. No contract, no invoice, no tax form, no email chain. No calendar appointment. Nothing but money leaving Richard and landing near Vanessa. That was the thing about his lies. They sounded polished when he said them out loud. But on paper, they looked thin, sloppy, almost lazy. And while we were looking at the car, Patricia found something I had not expected. Richard had not simply lost income. He had delayed it. His year-end bonus had not vanished. It had been pushed into the next pay cycle after the child support review. There was an email from payroll confirming that Richard had requested the timing change himself. I sat across from Patricia when she told me that, and for a few seconds I could not speak. There is a kind of anger that does not come hot. It comes cold. It settles behind your ribs and makes everything very clear. Richard had watched me stretch grocery money. He had watched Noah wear old cleats until they pinched his toes. He had listened to me explain that we might need to wait on the dental balance. He had let me feel embarrassed for asking him to help with ordinary things a father should help with. And the whole time, he was not broke. He was rearranging the truth. Patricia warned me not to get carried away. She said family court was not there to punish every immoral choice. It was there to look at support, disclosure, custody, and what could be proven. So we kept proving. That was when Richard's custody story began to crack. On paper, he wanted 50-50 custody because Noah deserved both parents equally. That was the sentence his attorney used. It sounded noble. It sounded clean. It sounded like the kind of sentence no one wanted to argue against. And I did not argue against it. Noah did deserve both parents. But he also deserved parents who showed up. The calendar told the part Richard left out. In 3 months, Richard canceled 9 pickups. 9. He missed 2 medical appointments after confirming he would be there. He skipped the parent-teacher conference, then told his lawyer he had never been informed. He ignored messages about Noah's baseball schedule and later blamed me for not being cooperative. One weekend, he said he had a business trip and could not take Noah. That same weekend, Vanessa posted a resort story, a glass balcony, a breakfast tray, a man's watch on the table. Richard's watch. I saved that too. Not because I wanted to stare at their little fantasy life. I did not. Every time I opened one of Vanessa's posts, my stomach turned. It was not just jealousy. Jealousy would have been simpler. It was the humiliation of watching another woman enjoy the money Richard claimed did not exist for his son. Then Richard tried another kind of pressure. He called late on a Tuesday. I did not answer, so he left a message. You act like I should just pay forever without ever questioning anything. I played it twice before the meaning landed. He did not say Noah's name. He did not have to. He was hinting at paternity. Not directly. Richard was too careful for that. But the suggestion was there, slipping under the words like poison under a door. He wanted me shaken. He wanted me angry. He wanted me to call him back crying, so he could keep the recording of my voice breaking and leave out everything he had done to break it. When I brought the voicemail to Patricia, her face changed. Not much. Just enough. She told me not to take the bait. If Richard wanted to request a DNA test, he could do it through the court. He could put his suspicion on paper. He could explain why, after 15 years of birthdays. School forms, family photos, tax returns, medical visits, and fatherhood, he suddenly wanted answers in the middle of a child support fight. Patricia said a tactic like that could backfire if the court believed it was being used to shame the mother or hurt the child. I wanted to believe Richard would not go that low. Then I remembered the SUV, the bonus, the custody lies, the way he had called Noah a paycheck without having the decency to say our son's name. In the end, Richard never filed for the test, because he did not really want answers. He wanted fear. He wanted me to flinch. He wanted me to become the version of myself he could point to in court and say, "See, this is what I deal with." But I did not give him that woman. I had the calendar. I had the records. I had the money trail. And by the time Richard realized I was not arguing anymore, it was too late. I was not fighting him in the kitchen. I was answering him through discovery. Then Patricia found something worse than the car. At first, I thought the SUV was the clearest insult. A brand new vehicle for Vanessa, while Richard claimed he could barely support Noah. It felt so obvious, so cruel, so neatly wrapped in that ridiculous red bow. But discovery has a way of showing you that the first thing you find is not always the deepest cut. The apartment came next. Oak Ridge. That was the name on the address. I had never heard Richard mention Oak Ridge. It was not his rental. It was not his office. It was not a client location. It was not listed on any paperwork he had given me. But Oak Ridge appeared on the SUV insurance file. Then it appeared in the dealership email. Then it appeared beside a deposit payment Richard had labeled relocation assistance. Relocation assistance. Every time Richard hid something, he gave it a name so boring it could almost disappear. Almost. But Patricia did not skim. She read everything. The apartment deposit had been paid from an account Richard had not disclosed properly. Nothing dramatic, nothing out of a movie. Just a small account he claimed was inactive. The kind of thing a tired person might miss if she was drowning in paperwork. Work schedules, school pickups, and grief. Patricia did not miss it. Then came the email from the dealership. It was short. Casual. Almost nothing. Use the Oak Ridge address. It's more stable for her. Stable. That word stayed with me. Richard had told the court he could not provide financial stability for Noah. He had told me I needed to lower my expectations. He had told his attorney that child support was choking him. But for Vanessa, he could build stability, a safer car, a better address, clean paperwork, a softer life. For his own son, he had excuses. For her, he had solutions. I did not scream when Patricia showed me the email. I did not cry. I just nodded and asked for a copy. That was when I learned how quiet a person can become when something inside them is finished. Outside Patricia's office, I kept acting normal. That was the strangest part. I still answered Richard through the parenting app. I still confirmed pickup times. I still sent school updates. I still packed Noah's baseball uniform. I still signed the dental forms. I still reminded Noah to bring a jacket when the weather changed. I did not message Vanessa. I did not post anything online. I did not tell Richard what we knew. Every polite message felt like swallowing glass. Richard would write, running 10 minutes behind. I would answer, noted. He would write, tell Noah to be ready. I would write, he will be. He would try to pull me into a side conversation, and I would type the same sentence every time. Please keep communication in the app. That sentence made him furious. Not because it was rude, because it was clean. It gave him nothing to twist. Inside Patricia's office, the files kept growing. Lies about income, payments to Vanessa, vehicle evidence, apartment evidence, custody cancellations, child support reduction request, emotional pressure involving Noah. Patricia built it slowly. She put dates on the left and documents on the right. Richard's words in one column, Richard's actions in another. That was what made it powerful. Not rage, order. The cold confrontation came on a Thursday. Richard was supposed to pick Noah up at 5:30 for baseball practice. At 5:40, there was no car in the driveway. At 5:50, Noah stopped pretending he was not watching the window. At 6:02, he took off his cap and sat on the stairs. By the time Richard pulled in, he was 47 minutes late. Noah had already missed warm-ups. Richard came to the door, irritated, not apologetic. That was always one of his small cruelties. He could be wrong and still enter the room like he had been inconvenienced. Noah stood behind me with his bag over one shoulder. Richard looked past me and said, "This is what she does. Noah. She makes everything difficult." Something in the air changed. I felt Noah go still. That was enough. I turned to my son and kept my voice calm. Go grab your water bottle, sweetheart. Noah disappeared down the hall, and I stepped onto the porch, closing the door halfway behind me. Richard lowered his voice. You are enjoying this, aren't you? I looked at him for a long second. Do not make our son carry a lie you wrote. His face hardened. You think some screenshots are going to save you? No. I said, I think the records will. That was the first time I saw it. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. It moved across his face quickly, but I caught it. Richard understood then that I was not the same woman he had been cornering in phone calls and kitchen arguments. I was not begging him to admit the truth. I was not trying to make him feel ashamed. I was not trying to win some ugly little fight on the porch. I was already past that. He had mistaken my silence for weakness. He did not know silence can also mean the file is almost ready. Richard walked into court believing he was going to look like a struggling father. He did not know Patricia had built his entire lie into a timeline. The morning of the hearing, Richard showed up in a plain navy suit. No expensive watch, no loud tie, no cologne hanging in the air like proof he had money to waste. He looked careful. That was the best way to put it. Carefully modest, carefully tired. Carefully dressed like a man who wanted the room to believe he had been squeezed dry by a bitter ex-wife and an unfair system. He sat beside his attorney with his hands folded on the table. If I had not known him for 22 years, I might have believed him. That was the frightening thing about Richard. He did not look like a villain. He looked like a man who knew when to lower his voice. He looked like someone who had practiced disappointment in the mirror. He looked reasonable, and reasonable lies are the ones that do the most damage. His attorney spoke first. She said Richard was under serious financial strain. She said the current support order was no longer realistic. She said he was trying to rebuild his life after the separation. She said I have been difficult, emotional, and unwilling to recognize Richard's right to be an equal parent. An equal parent. I looked down at my hands when she said that. Not because I was ashamed. Because if I looked at Richard, I knew he would see exactly what I was thinking. Equal parenting was not a phrase you earned by saying it in court. It was earned in school parking lots, in dentist waiting rooms, in late-night fevers, in grocery aisles, in the quiet, boring, unpaid work of showing up when nobody was clapping for you. Richard wanted the title without the labor. Patricia did not interrupt every insult. She did not sigh. She did not roll her eyes. She did not give Richard's attorney the satisfaction of making her look angry. She waited. That was one of the first things I learned about Patricia. She never rushed the truth. She let the other side build their little house out of words first. Then she opened the folder and started removing the foundation. When it was her turn, she stood with a stack of documents in her hand and began with the date Richard said he could not afford child support. She did not raise her voice. She did not make a speech. She simply placed the first stone, the date of Richard's financial hardship claim. Then came the date Vanessa posted the white SUV. Then the transfer labeled personal loan. Then the dealership paperwork showing the down payment. Then the insurance payment made with Richard's business credit card. Then the Oak Ridge apartment deposit. Then the payroll email showing Richard had requested his bonus be pushed into the next pay cycle. Then the custody calendar. One document at a time. Richard's story started losing air. It was almost strange to watch. For months, his lies had filled every room they entered. They were loud, heavy, confident. They made me question myself, explain myself, shrink myself. But on paper, those same lies looked small, thin, breakable. His attorney tried to soften the transfer to Vanessa. She said there was no proof the money had been intended for the vehicle. Patricia showed the timing. 3 days before purchase. Nearly the same amount as the down payment. Same dealership. Same week, Richard claimed he had nothing left for Noah. Richard leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. Then he said that money was not for a car. Patricia did not argue with him. She showed the insurance record. The first payment on Vanessa's SUV had been made with Richard's business card. The card he had listed as a necessary work expense. The same card he had tried to bury under language that sounded clean enough for a financial disclosure. His attorney said Vanessa was not relevant. Patricia answered calmly. She explained that transfers of marital funds, undisclosed expenses, questionable business charges, and inaccurate financial disclosures were relevant when a parent was asking the court to reduce support for a child. Richard shifted in his seat. I knew that movement. I had seen it at the kitchen table, in the driveway, over the phone, in every conversation where the truth got too close and he had not prepared a better lie. Then Patricia turned to custody. Richard's attorney said he wanted more time with Noah. She said he had been pushed aside. She said a teenage boy needed both parents, and Richard was only asking for fairness. Patricia did not fight the idea that Noah needed both parents. She agreed with it. That surprised Richard. I saw it in his face. Then Patricia said Noah also needed consistency. And she opened the calendar. 9 canceled pickups in 3 months. 2 missed medical appointments after Richard had confirmed he would attend. 1 parent-teacher conference he skipped, then later claimed he had never been told about. Repeated late arrivals. Messages asking to move weekends. Messages where he said work was too demanding. Messages where he blamed me for not being flexible enough. Then came the business trip. The weekend Richard said he could not take Noah because he had to travel for work. The same weekend Vanessa posted from a resort, a balcony, a breakfast tray, a man's watch on the table. Richard's watch. The judge read quietly for a while. There is a silence that feels empty, and there is a silence that feels full. That one felt full. Richard tried to explain. He said work was complicated. He said teenagers changed plans. He said I made communication difficult. He said divorce had created tension, and he was only trying to do his best. His best. That phrase landed hard. Because I had seen his best. I had seen his best in a white SUV. I had seen it in an apartment address named Oak Ridge. I had seen it in a delayed bonus, a business card charge, and a caption written by a woman who thought she was being loved. Patricia asked him one question. If his schedule was too unstable to exercise the parenting time he already had, why was he asking for more time at the exact same moment he was asking to pay less support? Richard opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he had no smooth answer ready. So he did what he always did when the room stopped bending around him. He looked at me like it was my fault. For 22 years, that look had worked on me. It had made me soften, explain, apologize, rush in and rescue him from the consequences of his own choices. But not that day. That day, I looked right back. The judge did not explode. There was no dramatic speech, no raised voice, no movie moment where the room gasped and Richard was dragged out by shame. Real consequences are usually quieter than that. The judge asked Richard why he had represented financial hardship while making substantial transfers to a third party. He asked why certain income had not been clearly disclosed. He asked why business expenses appeared connected to personal spending. He asked why the custody request did not match the documented parenting history. Richard answered, but the answers came out thin, careful, dry, the way paper sounds when it is about to tear. By then, the room already understood. The request to reduce child support was denied. Support would be recalculated using a more accurate picture of Richard's income, including the bonus Patricia had uncovered. The money connected to Vanessa would be considered in the division of marital funds. Richard was ordered to provide complete financial records. A portion of my attorney's fees was reserved for consideration because of the discovery problems. And the request for immediate 50-50 custody did not go the way Richard wanted. The court did not take his rights away. That was never what I wanted. I did not want Noah to lose his father. I wanted his father to stop using him like a line item. The judge made it clear that parenting time had to be based on consistency, not slogans. The parenting app would stay mandatory. Pickups, cancellations, and communication would be documented. Richard would have to show up in real life, not just in legal language. Noah would not be used as a discount code for Richard's guilt. That was the sentence that almost broke me. Not because anyone said it out loud. They did not. It was just what I heard inside my own head. Noah would not be used. For months, Richard had tried to make this about me. My bitterness, my greed, my tone, my supposed need to control everything. But in that courtroom, the paperwork made something clear. This was never about punishing Richard. It was about protecting Noah from being reduced to a payment Richard wanted lowered. Vanessa never came to court. She did not have to. Her post was there. Her SUV was there. Her caption was there. The woman who wanted the world to know she was being taken care of had helped prove exactly who Richard had stopped taking care of. There was a bitter kind of poetry in that. Not sweet. Not satisfying in the way people imagine revenge will feel. Just bitter. And true. When we walked out of the courtroom, I thought I would feel victorious. I had imagined that moment more than I wanted to admit. I thought maybe I would stand taller. Maybe breathe differently. Maybe feel clean. Instead, I felt tired. Deeply tired. Like I had been holding a door closed for years, and someone had finally told me I could let go. Richard stood near the hallway window, speaking sharply to his attorney. His face was tight. His hands moved too much. He looked angry, but underneath it, I saw something else. He did not look like a ruined man. He looked like a man who had lost control of the story. And for Richard, that was worse. Karma was not him losing everything in one afternoon. That would have been too easy. And honestly, too fake. Karma was the court making him live inside the truth he had tried so hard to edit. Karma was the timeline. Karma was the records. Karma was a white SUV with a red bow, posted by a woman who thought she was showing off love, when all she really showed was the money trail. When Patricia and I stepped outside, the air was cold enough to sting my face. She asked me if I was all right. I looked down at the folder in my hands. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel like I had to convince anyone I was telling the truth. The truth had spoken for itself. Peace did not come all at once after that. It came slowly, in small, ordinary pieces. It came in a townhouse, smaller than the house I lost, with old floors and a kitchen table that wobbled unless I folded a receipt under one leg. It came in grocery lists, due dates, utility bills, Quiet evenings where I still had to sit down with a calculator and make the numbers behave. I did not become rich after court. I did not wake up in some perfect new life. But I woke up without Richard's lies sitting at the end of my bed. That was enough. Child support started arriving when it was supposed to. Not because Richard suddenly became generous. Not because he finally understood what he had done. It arrived because the order gave him less room to perform, less room to delay, and less room to turn responsibility into a debate. The custody schedule went on the refrigerator in black marker. No one knew which weekends were his father's. He knew which nights he would be home with me. He knew when to pack his bag and when he did not have to. And slowly, I watched something loosen in his shoulders. A child should never have to study a parent's mood to know if they are safe. For a long time, Noah had done exactly that. He had learned to wait before asking questions. He had learned not to get excited too early. He had learned that disappointment hurts less when you expect it. After court, things were not perfect. But they were clear. And clear was a kind of mercy. I no longer had to defend every grocery receipt. I no longer had to hear Richard call me greedy because Noah needed baseball cleats. I no longer had to apologize for asking a grown man to help support the child he helped bring into the world. One Thursday morning, I found a folded note on the kitchen table. Noah had left it beside my coffee mug. It said, "Thanks for not yelling when everything was bad." I read it once, then again. Then I sat down and cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I was broken, because my son had seen me trying. That was the real victory. Not the SUV, not the money, not the look on Richard's face when Patricia laid out the timeline. The real victory was that my child remembered peace more than rage. I never called Vanessa. I never posted her photos. I never tried to destroy Richard's life. I let the records do what anger could not. Some people will say they have nothing left for responsibility, then somehow find plenty for desire. Some people will call you bitter when all you asked for was fairness. And sometimes, the thing they post to prove they are loved becomes the thing that proves they were lying. I did not need dirty revenge. I needed the truth. And once the truth was placed in the right hands, it did not need me to scream. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more stories about betrayal, divorce, custody battles, and the quiet strength it takes to start over. Because sometimes, freedom does not arrive as revenge. Sometimes it arrives as a court order, a quiet kitchen, and a child who finally knows which parent chose peace.